Ever get the feeling that, like, even a tiny bit of kindness, something as small as sharing a puff from a water pipe, could somehow unravel a huge injustice and reveal some deep hidden wisdom?
Yeah, it's like those ripples you see in a pond. A small action can have a big impact, especially in folklore.
Exactly. And today we're diving into this really cool story from Iranian folklore that shows us exactly that. You'll see how cleverness can solve impossible puzzles, and justice can be served with a little bit of humor too.
This one is special. It really gets you thinking about human nature and those values that we hold dear. It's not just a story, it's like a commentary on power and fairness. And it shows us that wisdom can come from the most unexpected places.
Right. So welcome everyone to our 138th deep dive into Iranian things. I'm Mars,
And I'm Tanaz.
and we're here to take you on a journey. Forget the typical stuff you hear about Iran. We want to unearth the hidden gems, the stories whispered through generations, the myths and legends, and maybe even a little bit of cryptozoology.
Yeah, think of us as your guides. We're going beyond the surface and exploring the heart of Iranian culture.
Absolutely. And today's tale is a folktale that's packed with moral lessons and symbolism.
It's like a fast track to understanding cultural values. We've done the digging so you can enjoy the treasure.
Perfect. So let's set the scene. Imagine a kingdom in deep trouble. A foreign emissary shows up, not to demand gold or land, but with 4 riddles. And these aren't your average riddles. They are incredibly tough, practically impossible to answer. We're talking about questions like, where is the center of the world? Are there more dead people than living? Are there more ruins in the world than inhabited places?
Wow, those are some deep questions.
Right. And the last one, the one that's probably baffled stargazers forever, how many stars are there in the sky?
Using riddles like that before a potential war is a really interesting move, right? It's like they're saying, we're not just stronger, we're smarter too.
Definitely. It puts immense pressure on the king and the entire kingdom, and they're given 40 days to solve them. Sounds like a lot of time.
It does.
You'd think so, right? But the king and his advisors, no matter how hard they try, can't figure them out. Day after day, nothing. 5 days left. And that threat of war is looming large. Someone suggests they seek help from this guy named Bohlul, who lives in the city. He's known for, well, let's just say he sees things a little differently.
Bohlul. He's a legendary figure in Persian folklore, kind of like a wise fool, the kind of person who sees solutions that everyone else misses because they're not bound by traditional ways of thinking.
Exactly. And the fact that the court, who usually relies on logic and reason, is now turning to Bohlul shows just how desperate they are. They're ready to try anything.
Makes sense. When the usual ways fail, you've got to think outside the box.
So let's leave the palace and all its worries for a moment. We find Bohlul walking home, and on his way, he sees this old man by the roadside. And I'm not talking just a little sad. I'm talking heartbroken, utterly devastated, tears streaming down his face.
Wow, that image is powerful. You can really feel the old man's pain. And it's really important how Bohlul reacts. He doesn't just walk by. He stops, acknowledges the man's pain, and connects with him.
Yeah. And what does he do? He asks for a simple puff from the old man's water pipe. Now, this might seem like a small thing, but in Iranian culture, sharing a smoke, it's a way of connecting, a moment of shared humanity. And you know what? It's this simple act that actually unlocks the old man's story.
It really shows Bohlul's approach to life. He meets people where they are, offers comfort, and then delves into their problems. A good reminder that even the most profound solutions often start with simple human connection.
I agree. So the old man, even though he's down to his last coin, shares his pipe with Bohlul. And then he pours his heart out. He tells Bohlul he was an iron merchant, a hardworking man who had saved up and stored a lot of iron in 7 warehouses.
7 warehouses, that's a lot of iron. That must have been his life saving.
Exactly. It represented years of hard work, everything he had. But when he went back to sell his iron, it was all gone. Every last bit of it vanished into thin air.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, the owner of the caravanserai where he stored the iron had a very interesting explanation. He blamed mice.
Mice. 7 warehouses full of iron. Come on, that's ridiculous.
It's so absurd. It makes you think something else is going on. Some foul play, maybe.
The owner was probably trying to get away with stealing the old man's hard-earned iron.
And the poor old man losing all that iron. That's a huge blow. It's like his whole world was taken away.
It gets worse. The old man took the owner to court, hoping for justice. But guess what? The judge sided with the owner. We don't know why. Maybe a bribe, who knows? But the poor guy was left with absolutely nothing except for the tobacco he'd bought with his last coin to smoke his pipe. Talk about hitting rock bottom.
It's a classic case of the powerful taking advantage of the vulnerable. And the fact that we don't know why the judge ruled against him, it just adds to the suspicion. It makes you think the whole system might be rigged against him. Exactly. So Bohlul, after listening to all of this, asks the old man if he has anything left. And all he has is this old donkey tied up nearby. And let me tell you, this donkey was not in good shape.
No.
One-eyed, one-eared, lame, and had an injury in a rather delicate area.
Oh, dear. So not only did he lose everything, but his last possession was practically worthless.
You'd think so, right? But here's where things take an interesting turn. Bohlul tells the old man, listen, if anyone wants to buy this donkey, don't sell it for anything less than 500 tumens.
500 for that donkey. That's insane. Even a good quality donkey back then wouldn't have cost that much.
Right. I mean, at that time, a decent Egyptian donkey would go for about 20 tumens. So Bohlul is asking for 25 times the normal price. You can imagine the old man's confusion.
Yeah, that's a huge leap. It sounds like Bohlul has a plan, but what could it possibly be?
We'll get to that. But Bohlul simply tells the old man not to worry, assuring him a buyer will come, guided by a good blessing. No further explanation, just a mysterious promise.
Talk about trusting the process. The old man must have been desperate enough to cling to any hope. It shows the power of faith, especially in those moments when everything seems lost.
Absolutely. Now back to the palace. Bohlul goes to the king, asks to hear those impossible riddles, and confidently declares these are nothing difficult.
The audacity. I love how Bohlul just walks in with such self-assurance, especially when everyone else has been struggling.
Right. It's classic Bohlul, always going against the grain. But then he does something even stranger. He asks the king to find a donkey. And not just any donkey. He describes the old man's donkey down to every detail, the one eye, the one ear, the limp, even the unfortunate injury.
Why would he ask for such a specific, and let's face it, not so great donkey? It must be part of his plan to answer the riddles.
Exactly. So the king, though probably puzzled, sends out his people to find the donkey. And as you can guess, they find the old man's donkey. And when they try to buy it, the old man, remembering Bohlul's instructions, stands firm. 500 tumens, he says.
I bet they were shocked. That's a ridiculous price. They probably thought he was crazy.
Totally. The royal minister argued, saying even the finest Arabian horse wouldn't cost that much. But the old man, bless his heart, held his ground. In the end, they paid the 500 tumens and brought the donkey to Bohlul.
That's amazing. So Bohlul's plan is already working, and the old man is getting something back even before those riddles are solved. It's like a little bit of justice being served right there.
I know, it's pretty brilliant. Now, picture this. Bohlul asks for a royal robe, a really fancy one. He drapes it over this beaten-up donkey, climbs on, and rides it straight into the king's chamber.
Can you imagine the scene? A ragged donkey, draped in royal finery, carrying Bohlul into the king's presence. It must have been quite a sight. It's like he's turning the idea of power and prestige on its head.
Oh, it was definitely a statement.
Yeah.
He then asks for a hammer and a nail. And what does he do? He walks over to the most beautiful, probably incredibly expensive silk carpet in the room and hammers that nail right in the center.
What? He hammered a nail into the king's precious carpet?
He did. It must have shocked everyone. That carpet probably represented the king's wealth, his power, his refined taste. And Bohlul just went and hammered a nail through it.
That's a bold move.
It was. Now, with the nail in place, Bohlul calls for the emissary, the first riddle. Where is the center of the world? Bohlul points to the nail. Right here, he says. If you don't believe me, measure it.
Oh, that's clever. He took a philosophical question and gave a concrete, literal answer. And how can anyone argue with that? He basically turned the riddle into a joke.
He did. The emissary was speechless. Next riddle. Are the dead more numerous than the living? Bohlul replies, of course. Everyone who's alive will eventually die.
That's another simple, undeniable truth. He's not trying to be profound or philosophical. He's just stating facts.
Exactly. Third riddle. Are the ruins of the world greater than its inhabited places? Bohlul answers, yes, because even the places we live in now will one day be ruins.
He's got a point. It makes you think about the passage of time and how everything eventually crumbles.
And then the final riddle, the one that seemed impossible. How many stars are in the sky? Bohlul, with a twinkle in his eye, says, as many as there are hairs on my donkey. Count them if you don't believe me.
Oh, wow. That's hilarious. He totally outsmarted the emissary. How could anyone count the hairs on a donkey?
Right. It's a brilliant move. The emissary is defeated. The king, impressed and relieved, asks Bohlul what he wants as a reward. He even offers him half his kingdom.
enough with the kingdom. I wonder what Bohlul will choose.
But Bohlul doesn't want wealth or power. All he asks for is a written decree declaring him the king of mice.
The king of mice. That's an odd request. What's he up to?
It seems strange, right? But remember, Bohlul always has a plan. The king, though probably confused, agrees. The decree is written and given to Bohlul. And what does he do next? He gathers some laborers and goes straight to the judge's house, the one who ruled against the old man.
I think I'm starting to see where this is going.
He tells the laborers to start digging around the judge's property. He announces, "I am the king of mice, and I am here to reclaim the iron that my subjects have stolen."
So he's using that seemingly silly title to expose the lie about the mice stealing the iron. Brilliant.
Exactly. The judge, of course, is bewildered. "Do mice even carry iron?" he asks. And Bohlul, without missing a beat, demands that the judge give him a written statement confirming that mice do not steal or eat iron.
He's got the judge trapped.
The judge, realizing he's been outwitted, has no choice but to write and sign the statement.
That's a key piece of evidence. Now he has proof that the judge didn't believe the mouse story in the first place.
Exactly. And Bohlul doesn't stop there. He goes to the caravanserai and does the same thing. The owner, like the judge, is forced to admit in writing that mice don't carry off iron.
So he's gathered all the evidence he needs. He's using their own words against them.
Right. He then goes back to the old man with the good news and presents the written statements to the authorities. The judge and the owner are summoned. They are questioned and confronted with their own admissions, and in the end, they're forced to repay the old man for all that stolen iron.
Finally, justice is served. And it wasn't through the traditional legal system, but through Bohlul's cleverness and unconventional methods.
It's a great victory. And before leaving, Bohlul tells the old man, "Everything I did, it was all thanks to that puff from your water pipe." And with that, he bids farewell and goes on his way.
What a beautiful ending. It shows how a small act of kindness can have such a powerful ripple effect. The old man's generosity set a chain of events in motion that led to his redemption. It's a reminder that every action, no matter how small, has consequences.
It really is an amazing story. It shows us the power of quick thinking, creative solutions, and that kindness can lead to incredible results.
And the symbolism is so rich, right? The broken-down donkey, initially a symbol of the old man's misfortune, becomes the vehicle for Bohlul's wisdom and triumph.
Right. And then there's the nail hammered into the luxurious carpet. It's like a symbol of grounding truth in a world that often values appearances over substance.
And let's not forget about Bohlul becoming the king of mice. It sounds silly, but it was a stroke of genius that allowed him to expose the lie and bring justice to the old man.
I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Iranian folklore as much as we did. It's stories like these that remind us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope, and that kindness and cleverness can overcome even the biggest challenges.
If you'd like to hear more fascinating stories like this, please subscribe to Iranian Things and leave a comment or like. We love hearing from you.
And don't forget to check out our playlist. It's packed with episodes exploring similar themes in Iranian folklore and mythology. You'll be surprised at the connections and insights you'll find.
Before you go, here's something to ponder. In a world that often emphasizes grand gestures and obvious power, what small acts of kindness or creative thinking might hold the key to solving larger problems or even sparking positive change around you?
Think about it. Until next time.